What's up, guys? Halloween is just around the corner, so I wanted to start working on a Halloween project. It's just becoming like kind of tradition here on the channel. For a few years now, I've made like Christmas projects and now Halloween projects too, just kind of fun to do. This kit just recently built and reviewed, and it's very big and monstrous, and I feel like why don't we just turn it into an actual like big monster sort of build here for Halloween. So what do I want to do with this? Essentially, the main thing is kind of try to fix the proportions a little bit. I just am not a big fan of the proportions of this just huge upper body, super wide, and these tiny little SD legs that just look like they're just like some weird joke. So first thing I want to do is make the legs longer, and probably what I'm going to end up doing for that is just basically use the sections of leg that we have here and then just basically fill the gaps in between and then just do like a kind of epoxy putty like cloth covering over that. What I've been looking at and like thinking about this project was looking at a lot of Kishio Mori's work, and if you guys are on Twitter and you're not following him, I would definitely recommend giving him a follow. He's been getting really famous in recent years for his mixing scape works, where he makes these like custom builds that are just like bits and pieces from a bunch of different model kits and stuff, just all kind of put back together and reimagined into these really cool mecha kits. And they use a lot of like cloth covering to kind of fill the gaps in different areas and things like that. So that's something that I thought would work pretty well for this kit in terms of wanting to adjust the proportions without having to like, you know, scratch build completely new limbs for it. I thought about just replacing the lower legs entirely with maybe something like the MG GOG or something was something that came to mind. I thought would be like a good fit, MG Dom or MG GOG, something in 1/100 scale legs that would be like a good size to kind of match this very large torso we have for this. But I thought, no, we don't really need to do that. I'll just like custom make something. And I want to make some other changes too. I think like maybe turning one of the hands into like a flamethrower or something. I thought about changing it into like a gun, but I thought like, oh, well, monster, you know, doesn't really have a gun. So we can like, I think maybe I'll keep one set of claw hands, maybe sharpen up the claws a bit just to kind of make them look a little bit more menacing maybe. And the other hand, maybe turn it into some sort of like flamethrower, sort of flame emitting thing or something like that. The front, actually, if you remove this part, already kind of looks like a monstrous face there. Like that already kind of looks like a mouth. So I think that's kind of pretty much solved right there. I maybe might try to do something else more with that, but that's really kind of all we have to do. And then I think these parts from the front and back, once removed from here, would actually make good like skirt armor here, sort of like side skirt armor we can add that will help to balance out the proportions a bit instead of having like these, like I said, really super wide shoulders and really narrow waist. We can widen out the waist a bit by having these as like skirt armor pieces. And so essentially it's just going to be a lot of not necessarily scratch building or kit bashing, but like junk building, just using like rods and runner pieces and stuff just to kind of get everything into basically more sort of to the proportions that I want, and then covering everything like that I want to cover with epoxy putty to make it look like cloth, and then also probably adding some more parts just kind of here and there around on the kit as well. So let me go ahead and get started, and then we'll come back and I'll kind of show you what I've got going on so far with this. All right, and so after a few days of work, just wanted to give you guys an update, see how this is going so far. There's still a bit more to do on it, and then different parts to add, and then we'll get to like the cloth coverings. So basically, as you'll see it here, there's a lot changed proportionally. Basically this section here where these parts were like the kind of beak parts of the front and back, the front part, it was like almost the perfect shape of a mouth, even had these like ridges there at the bottom. I cut some more ridges there at the top. I cut some little plastic pieces there to act as teeth, cut out the inside there and hollowed that out, and then added a piece in there which will sort of act as like a tongue sort of looking piece inside the mouth there. As you can see, also replacing the kind of pink missile parts here on the shoulders. These are some thruster bells on the bottom. They're going to be different parts there on the top I got to add on. For the claw here on this side, went ahead and replaced that with a couple of different parts put together, a bunch of Shinanju axes. I got a GN drive in there, so you can see it's just a bunch of Kitbashing different parts, and there's more of that to do. Now basically the last kind of step before we can move on to like the cloth coverings over like these sections where you can see it's just a bunch of pieces of runners stuck together, that's all going to be covered up by epoxy putty with cloth to make it look like cloth over that. So that's kind of the next big step. But like these fins, for example, will be sticking out from that. And then rotating this around here to the back side, I've got a couple of fuel tanks. This is some different parts that went together here to make this kind of section. I've got a couple of fuel tanks that'll be sticking out the back here. Obviously added this big fin up there on the top of the head as well, seeing as how this is still a Zeon mobile suit at the end of the day. And Zeon mobile suit, like commander types, usually have that fin. So just went for basically an exaggerated version of that. And then down here, the legs obviously made a large, long extension of the legs, considering the original legs were like that short, using some like Shinanju leg frame pieces in there, and then just again filling them in with different bits of just chopped up bits of runner just to fill those spaces, so that then I can just cover that up with putty. So that'll be covered up. And then the elephant-like feet I thought could do with some toes. So added these bits here at the front and back, and then toe parts out, extended out from there. I think I'll probably add a little bit of like texture, like grounded texture here at the bottom as well. I think this is the base that I'm going to use. It kind of fits on this. So I think this is a pretty good base, just this circular wooden base here. Those parts for like the front and back that stick out of the front and back of the torso, or just repurpose those here to like some side skirts, just to give it a little bit more, just to change up the proportions, the silhouette a bit, to give it a more kind of wider hip section here. Obviously extended the torso a bit there as well, added some more parts that'll kind of stick out. So these like circle parts you see, those will stick out from like through, so like the cloth covering will be molded around that. And I did keep one of the original claws here over on this side, just so that there's kind of one of each. And that's really kind of about it. So it's just been a bunch of essentially just gluing a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of stuff is glued. Like the limbs are not glued into place yet, but I mean, pretty much everything else is all like glued, because I'm imagining just, you know, like I said, filling in the cloth coverings in these areas, and then also on some of the armor, I'm going to be adding some texture onto that, just with some putty texture to just make it look kind of a bit more rough. It's all going to be hand painted, so it doesn't really matter that kind of everything's all going to be all glued together. That's kind of how it's looking so far. It's pretty monstrous, I think, which was the goal. So I wanted to, you know, like my main goals were to make it monstrous, to change the proportions. And I also added a second eye, and I wanted to have the eyes like asymmetrical. I'm not totally set on this placement of the eyes yet, but I think having two like non-symmetrical eyes that look like they're like looking off in different directions also kind of adds to just kind of the monstrous look of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue to add a few more parts on this, just to kind of add to that sort of kitbashed, mixing scape, Kishiomori sort of look to this that I'm going for. And then we'll get on to the putty work, the epoxy putty and the putty texture on the armor and all that. And then finally the painting.